Now, Props and Locks on Fox 32 Chicago, presented by Bet Rivers Sportsbook.
Good Sunday morning and welcome to Props and Locks. I'm Caitlin Sharkey. Week 7 of the NFL season is here, and we are here to give you the best bets and odds of the week, courtesy of Bet Rivers Sportsbook. Joining me every Sunday morning, host of VSiN Rush Hour, Danny Burke. And Danny, per usual, we start with the Bears, but we have a Monday night primetime matchup this week. Bears visiting the Rams, and if I sound like a broken record, well, that's because the Bears are underdogs once again. They are catching 6 team totals at 44.5. 2 top 7 defenses coming head-to-head. The Rams only 1-3 against the spread in their last 4 games. Safe to say this is a tough one, Danny. I like the Bears with the points, but what are you thinking?
Look, this is a really tough spot in my opinion, Caitlin, because yes, the Rams are coming off a tough loss against the 49ers on Sunday night, and the Bears, conversely, have been on a nice roll, and they're still getting somewhat disrespected, I guess you could say, on the point spread. As we saw this one open in favor of the Rams, laying 7. Total was at about 47. You also alluded to the defenses. The under has gotten a lot of the attraction from some of these sharper bettors too, so we've seen that dip down, and we've seen the spread now come down to 6. Personally, I think it's a really tricky spot here because this is one of those games where it could potentially kind of develop into a recency bias spot because of how the Bears have looked better, because how the Rams, they were hot, but now they're coming off that tough loss. It could be a good spot, though. We talk about teasers all the time. Maybe if you don't want to lay the 6 with Los Angeles and you just want to tease them down 6 points to basically a pick 'em and they just have to win outright, that could be a potential play. But look, the way that I would look at it if I had to, because right now I'm kind of just staying away overall, but I think the total touchdowns in the first half, under 2.5, could potentially be a play. Now, you're laying a little bit in that spot at about minus 143 or so. But look, the Rams in the first half have gotten out the slow starts, specifically on the defensive side. But when you look at this Bears offense, what have they been unable to do? Move the ball, especially in the first half. So I think those are kind of going to like butt heads with each other pretty much. And I think under 2.5 total touchdowns in the first half would be a decent play to make because look, this point spread's a little bit too high for me to want to go with the Rams. So I would probably lean toward taking the points with the Bears, but I think this spot with the under 2.5 touchdowns in the first half could be a better play.
All right, we have another Nick Foles prop bet to look at this week. Total completions at 22.5. Foles just crossing that mark last week, but no doubt a tougher test this week with Aaron Donald and the Bears offensive line still struggling a bit. Danny, your thoughts on this prop?
Yeah, Caitlin, we hit this one last week, and we definitely had to sweat it out. It's in the same spot now at 22.5, but in the 3 full games that Foles has started, he's averaging 26 completions. And now if you look at the Rams defense, they're allowing opposing quarterbacks an average of 23 completions per game, which of course gets you over that mark of 22.5. And the amount of quarterbacks who have gone over this mark against the Rams, it's happened in every single game against one. The only quarterbacks not to do it is when it was split between Haskins and Allen against the Washington football team. So look, let's ride the hot trend here. If you want to play a prop, let's assume that Foles can do it once again and go over 22.5 and just get 23 completions. With this Rams defense, it is solid, but hey, if they're going to get off to a slow start defensively once again, maybe Foles is going to be able to nickel and dime some good passes in there. So Nick Foles over 22.5 completions once again.
All right, good stuff. The Bears are 3-0 on the road this season. The total has gone under in 4 of the last 5 games for the Bears, so something to watch for sure. Next up, the Packers and Texans, a game you can see right here on Fox 32 at noon. Packers, the 3-point favorite, coming off their loss to the Buccaneers last week. Green Bay running back Aaron Jones is a game-time decision, but it's not sounding like he will play with a mild ankle sprain. Danny, yes, last week was tough for Green Bay, still without left tackle David Bakhtiari, but I still like the Packers to cover against Houston.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one here, Caitlin, because we saw this one go up to 3.5. Now with the news of Aaron Jones potentially not playing, even if he is suited up, we've seen that drop down to 3. And that's when I jumped in on the action because, of course, 3 is one of the 2 biggest key numbers, being 3 and 7. So now that it's at that spot, you don't have to pay a little bit more to lay it. I did lay the 3 with the Packers because, look, Jamal Williams can step in and do a good enough job. There's also a lot of trends that back up Green Bay here. Following an ATS loss, so when they haven't covered a number, they've covered the last 10 games after that. So obviously they got stomped last week against the Bucs. They didn't cover, and the last 10 times that's happened, they've covered in each of those games. So I think that trend's going to continue as well. And as for the Texans, you look on their side, they've lost their last 9 out of 11 as a home dog, each of the last 5 by double digits. So I think the trends bode very well here for the Packers. And look, Caitlin, it would just be really hard to imagine this Aaron Rodgers-led team dropping 2 in a row, especially against this Houston team where, yes, they've looked a little better since O'Brien's been gone, but defensively, they can't stop anything. So I like laying the 3 with the Cheeseheads in this spot.
Absolutely. What do you think about the over-under at 56.5? Obviously, we know the Packers can score a lot of points. They didn't against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but when you look at both of these teams combined, what do you think about that 56.5 number?
Yeah, I think you got to go over or nothing in this spot. I mean, DVOA-wise, Green Bay ranks 30th and Houston ranks 27th in overall defense. I just said how the Texans really can't stop anything defensively. Neither can the Packers, and we know how mobile and dominant Deshaun Watson can be. That offense has taken a step forward since O'Brien departed, so I think the over would really kind of be the only move here, if anything. It is a really high total, so I'd understand if you'd shy away, but, you know, everybody's been saying you're kind of a sucker if you're betting unders in the NFL today, and this is probably going to be one of those cases if you do.
All right, something to watch for sure. Still more to come on props and locks. We'll continue with a look at some other Week 7 action, and Danny will give us more of his best bets. And as always, a reminder, you can place your bets at BetRivers.com or using the BetRivers mobile app. We're back after this.
Props and locks.
Welcome back to Props and Locks. I'm Caitlin Sharkey, joined by the host of VSiN Rush Hour, Danny Burke. Danny, let's continue with another NFC North team, the Lions and Falcons. Closer spread here. Atlanta, the 1-point favorite, total at 55. Both teams coming off much needed and impressive wins. But again, I'm shying away from that 1-point spread. How are you leaning, Danny?
Yeah, Caitlin, this line has been moving up and down all throughout the week. We even saw it get as high as Atlanta laying 3, and I know a lot of the sharp bettors attacked Detroit right away in that spot, and now, like you said, we see it with Atlanta laying about 1. So this is kind of really just an ugly, tricky spot because talent-wise, they both have the pieces. It's just who can put it together for all 4 quarters, and we've been unable to see who can do that on a consistent basis. So for that reason, I'm looking at a different angle. We've talked about this spot a few times last week, and I would implement it here as well. The team total in the first half for Detroit. So it's at 13.5, which is under the number 14, which would be relatively key, of course, in terms of the total. And this is a mark that Detroit has gone over in 4 out of 5 games. They've scored at least 14 points in the first half. Atlanta, on the other side, they allow the 2nd most yards per game throughout the league. And Detroit in the first half, they're putting up 15 points per game too. So I think that would be a good angle to look at because these defenses are both very vulnerable to giving up a lot of points. And offensively, Stafford could have a good game in this spot. So give me the Lions first half team total over 13.5.
All right, moving on, a battle of undefeateds in this huge AFC battle, a rescheduled game between the Steelers and Titans. And no surprise here, we have a 1-point spread. Tennessee, the favorite, over under at 51. Both teams rank in the top 5 of the league in scoring. Does this game spell teaser, Danny?
Absolutely it does, Caitlin, because you're in that perfect spot with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a short road underdog of about +1 to +3. You tease it up through the 3 and through the 7 with either a 6, 6.5, or 7-point teaser, and that gets you right on the money. So I teased up the Steelers when they were actually catching 1.5 and teased them up 6 points to +7.5 because, look, I think the Steelers probably win this game outright too, but just to add a little bit insurance, I like putting them on the teaser. And what it comes down to is the defenses. In overall DVOA, Pittsburgh ranks 2nd and Tennessee ranks 22nd. A huge gap in that spot. We know Derrick Henry can run the ball. No Devin Bush for Pittsburgh, which is going to hurt. But this Steelers defense is what's going to be the key in the end of this game. And offensively, you alluded to as well, Pittsburgh's been putting up a lot of points too. So I think they win this game outright. But just to be safe, I did tease them up to +7.5 and paired it with another squad.
All right, I like the Steelers as well for that one. Moving on to the Seahawks and Cardinals. Seattle laying 3.5, total at 54.5. Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is questionable but is expected to play. Another primetime game for Kyler Murray, and we all know what Russell Wilson is capable of. I like Seattle money line. Danny, what are you going with?
Look, I understand why you'd go in that spot. It's a little bit safer than laying 3 in the hook. It's a little bit more of an ugly spot there. I would lean that way to laying the 3.5 if anything, but I think the play here is to go over. We talk about not betting unders, and this is probably one of those games. Now, Arizona's defense actually has been pretty solid, but their schedule really hasn't. So now they're finally going up against a good offensive opponent. And defensively for the Seahawks on the other side, they allow the most yards per game and the most yards through the air. So if Kyler Murray's going to thrive again, it will certainly be against the Seahawks team. And the totals actually dropped a little bit from its opener. Now we see it at about 54.5. I like the over in the spot if I'm playing anything here, Caitlin.
All right, our last game this morning, Jimmy Garoppolo reuniting with his former coach Bill Belichick, 49ers and Patriots in Foxborough. Patriots laying 3 at home, over under at 45. Belichick knows Jimmy G well. Niners looked better last week against the Rams, but I got to go with Cam in New England here, Danny.
Huge recency bias game here. 49ers coming off a big win. The Patriots have been slumping, got dismantled by the Broncos. Bill Belichick against a former quarterback. Are you kidding me? They opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. Went down to 1.5. I actually played it then when the money line was -125. So that was my play. But obviously now it's shifted. It's gone up back in favor of the Patriots. So I would lay the 3 in this spot still. And if you're willing to lay it, take a little bit more safety precaution, go with the money line here. I got the better number, fortunately, but I do think the Patriots get a win here against the 49ers.
All right, and as we wrap up, is there another game you're looking at or another bet for this week?
Yeah, so we talked about teasers, a couple teasers I did. I talked about the Steelers, teased them up from +1.5 to +7.5. And I also paired that with the Chargers. I teased them down from 7.5 as a home favorite, teased them down 6 points to just laying 1.5. Also did the Chargers in another teaser and paired it with the Saints, teasing them down just like I did with the Chargers. A little bit iffy with the Saints team because of the injuries, but I still think they get the job done. And then we talked about it. Patriots money line and Packers laying 3. Those are my best bets for NFL Week 7.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, Danny, and thank you for joining us on Props and Locks, brought to you by Bet Rivers Sportsbook. Join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. and make sure you place those bets at betrivers.com. Fox Kickoff Sunday is next.